Okay, good morning. Can y'all hear me this morning? Okay. I'll call to order the March 2nd, 2020 regular meeting of the Haywood County Board of Commissioners. And our first order of business is our Pledge of Allegiance, and after that we'll have a moment of silence because our chaplain can't be here this morning. So if everyone would please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, our next order of business is public hearings, and we have none this morning. And then our next order of business is our public comment session. Would anyone like to address the board this morning? Seeing no one, I'll move on and we'll close the public comment session. I'll move to constituent concerns. Kirk, do you have any this morning?
No, sir.
Okay. Brandon, or what time? Okay, all right, good. Okay, we'll move on to administrative agency reports, and we'll ask our County Manager, Bryant Moorhead, to introduce our new county employees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure how many are here today. From Health and Human Services, we have Victoria Frenay. Sheriff's Office, we have Logan Hassler and Todd Bradley. And from Animal Control, we have Howard Martin, who you met previously, but he's officially an employee. Those are our new county employees.
Thank y'all. I think Howard's the only one here this morning. Appreciate you attending, Howard. We had introduced Howard last time, didn't we? Okay, our next item under administrative agency reports is our county employee wellness program Fit Together update from Haywood Regional Medical Center staff members Lauren Teague and Jamie Cavos. I'm sorry. Cavcos. Okay, sorry.
All right.
Thank y'all for being here.
You're welcome. Good morning. So we just wanted to give you a little bit of update on the how the program's gone the first 2 months. And so Jamie is the nurse navigator, and she has been drawing labs on employees for the past couple of months. So she has seen 167 of your employees through the 18th of February. So the HHSA and DSS has had the most location, has the largest amount by location. Sheriff's Office and Courthouse had about 25 employees, and urgent care, we had about 48 employees come to our urgent care to have their labs drawn and see Jamie for that first meeting with her. EMS by far has had the most employees turn out, and they've had 65 of their employees be seen by Jamie. And 55 employees from Health and Human Services.
So out of the 167, 135 of them did have a primary care. I did provide information to 30 of them for information to get a primary care, and out of 30 of those, 5 I've made appointments for, and actually I think 4 of them have already seen their primary cares at that point.
So one of the metrics that we did do was BMI, which is body mass index, and that's just a telltale sign of where somebody is with their health. And 62% of the employees are considered obese. So about 100 of the 167 or so. 27 employees are considered overweight, and only 17 of the employees that she saw were considered normal weight, normal BMI.
So out of those, about 49% have pre-existing, so they have been diagnosed with hypertension, which is high blood pressure, and 33 have been diagnosed with high cholesterol, and 17 have actually been diagnosed with diabetes already.
Was that, they were previously
Previously
not diagnosed?
No, previously diagnosed.
Okay.
Okay, so now she did draw fasting blood glucose, so blood sugar values on the employees, and 9 of those did have diabetes, and 28 of them had prediabetes. And a lot of that goes that weight and diabetes tend to go hand in hand, and pretty much all 28 of those did not know that they had prediabetes.
How many?
All 28 did
And
not know.
And you can control that with diet, a lot of that.
Correct.
Yeah.
You can go ahead.
So hemoglobin A1C is a 3-month average of blood sugar. So if somebody comes for those fasting labs and they say, well, I did eat a little something, I shouldn't have, A1C, you cannot hide from it. It tells the last 3 months, they can't hide from it. It doesn't matter if they ate breakfast, didn't eat breakfast, whatever. So 63 people, based on that A1C of three months, were considered pre-diabetes, and 13 had diabetes. Some of those were new diagnoses, so they did not know.
So we also did cholesterol levels, and with that, their triglycerides. So 116, the goal is to be less than 150. So 51 of those people had high triglycerides, so typically over 150. And then there was only 116 that did not. Typically, when you have a high cholesterol or high triglycerides, you're going to also see that coincide with that pre-diabetes also, because they're eating high amounts of refined sugars, processed foods. And so you can control that with diet also. HDL, which is your good cholesterol, so this is the one we want to be typically higher because it helps to get rid of the bad cholesterol. Only 39 of them actually had a low HDL, which is typically wanted greater than 40 for men and greater than 45 for women. I did have one that was very, very low, and so we're working on trying to get them to exercise more because that's the only typically way you can get your HDL up. Your LDL, which is your bad cholesterol, 56 of them were in the range of borderline, which is 100 to 129 with your HDL, because we want it less than 100, and then 53 of them are greater than 130, which is at risk for a higher risk for heart disease. So typically LDL means you're eating a high amount of saturated fat, so red meat, full fat dairy products. It can be typically when they get above greater than 130, we're going to start looking at the doctors will start looking at medications to add. And high blood pressure, we did check them both in both arms, because typically they don't do that in a doctor's office. They should have a slight variation, but in a large variation. American Heart Association last year changed their requirements for high blood pressure. It used to be 140 over 90. They changed it to 130 over 80 on 2 consecutive sittings. So 106 of them would be considered high blood pressure at that point. And some of it was stress, because I have rechecked some of them, and they were a little stressed when they came to see me. I'm not that I'm scary, but typically it's a white coat syndrome, so sometimes they will be a little higher. I have rechecked some of them, and they've come down. Some of them I have not, and we've sent on to the doctors to adjust medications. You can go ahead and talk on that one.
So PSA is the prostate lab, and we were checking individuals over 40, and Jamie actually was able to discover 2 individuals that had a high PSA. She has since sent them on to their primary care, and they've been seen by urology. So a high prostate could indicate prostate cancer, and so those were 2 really good catches, 2 wins we felt like with those individuals to get them seen appropriately, timely, and get it taken care of before it was a problem. So wellness education, so all those numbers we just gave you, we've really tried to push those individuals to wellness, so being seen by the dietitian for weight management, for those diabetes labs, for high cholesterol and things like that. So the dietitian has been going on site. She's been meeting them either here at the historic courthouse, the sheriff's office, EMS base, and then Health and Human Services. 16 of those individuals have been seen, all 16 scheduled follow-ups, and she has 18 more people, brand new people to see in the month of March. So we feel like that's a pretty good turnout. Dietitians, people think we're scary because we're going to take all their food from them, but we're really not. We're just going to help them with a healthy meal plan, and you can still eat some of those foods just in moderation. So I think once they realize that we aren't scary people, we'll have more, and maybe they'll go back and tell their coworkers, hey, it's not that bad. And so we hope that we can catch some of those numbers that we shared with you previously to come see the dietitian.
So group education, we are actually teaching, so how we're kind of doing the group education is we're going on site to different locations. So we're going to Health and Human Services, the EMS base in Waynesville, and then we're also coming here. We're teaching the same class for 3 months, but rotating locations, and then we'll start a new class so nobody misses anything. Diabetes was first held at Health and Human Services, and they had 4 show up. We had 11 show up for weight management at the EMS location, and 2 for heart health here. And those 2 numbers, the 2 lower numbers, was factored by weather. We did have snow on those days, so people had to leave to go get their children, and that's completely understandable. And I did teach a stress management class last Thursday, and I had 10 show up over at Health and Human Services.
So again, kind of those group classes are free for those individuals. It's just getting them here. So Jamie has done newsletters, and we have copies for you. Oh, she gave them to you. So those are going out to the employees monthly. It just gives them little tidbits, nutrition, exercise, and reminds them of the group classes. So Jamie has sent 169 handwritten birthday cards to the employees. She's made at least 250 contacts with the employees. So just constantly reiterating that she's here, she's available. They all have her cell phone number and her email address. It's just a matter of getting them used to having somebody available. Let me go. Yeah. Okay, so fitness center, there's 306 employees, or 306 total people have joined the fitness center. 177 of those were employees, and 129 of those were their family members that were added on to their plan. So it felt like 306, that was a pretty good turnout in the first couple of months.
This is utilization, so this just shows you kind of where the program started from in December when we started rolling out the fitness center till now. Shows you how many of the employees plus their add-ons have actually used it during those weeks.
So personal training, part of the contract was that each employee would get, and their family member would get 2 free personal training visits. 107 people have signed up for those, and 14 people have completed their 2 free packets, and 3 have continued on buying more personal training visits beyond that. 63 people have been contacted, and what they're doing is they're calling them, asking them if they're ready to be seen right now for their personal training, if they were wanting to do their New Year's resolution and come in March. So we feel like those numbers will continue to increase as coworkers go back and show their success.
So I did find the 2 with the high PSAs, and we were able to get them to their primary care and the urology. We also had another patient that she had not been diagnosed with diabetes. We've got her enrolled with it. She's already seen the dietitian. She's actually seen her primary care to get her started on medications. And then we had another lady with a very low potassium that we were able to get taken care of at her primary care physician. Go ahead.
So moving forward, if we have new employees or employees that have not previously had their labs drawn, they will see Jamie. They'll need to come to the urgent care to see Jamie in those labs. We'll continue to encourage and promote attendance at the group classes with the dietitian and the fitness center. She'll remain in close contact for those employees with those abnormal labs every 30 days, if not sooner on some of them. And then she will continue to promote the fitness center. And then the fitness center staff and Jamie will actually go on site to some of the locations and help them with some exercise tips that they could do during their lunch break or whenever they feel like they can get back there. Health and Human Services has some equipment. And so Jamie was going to take the fitness center staff on site and teach them how to use the equipment because it's not being used. So any questions?
How do you find out about the classes, where the classes
It's
are
in
at?
the newsletter. It's in the
Okay.
newsletter. I post it every week, and then I send it in the newsletter, and then I will also email those ones that I have identified that really need to come to those classes and say, hey, you need to come to this class. It's up to them. I push it with them, but it's completely if they're ready to take that.
And you send the newsletter out, email, or how that gets to all the employees?
I send it to Kathy, and then she sends it out to everybody into Haywood County. So if you would like to receive it, I can email it to you.
Do we get it? Do I get it? Send it to us? Okay. It would come on the Haywood County email, right? I get mine. Okay. The fitness center visits, that just includes the ones or the people that signed up, not necessarily people who already were going to the fitness center.
The 306 are everybody that we converted over. So everybody is converted over. There were some that were already coming to the fitness center, and we converted them over to the program. But there is also people that do not sign in when they come to the fitness center.
Yeah.
So
I'm kind of one of those people that don't sign in. Yeah,
you just walk up the stairs and keep going. So when they don't sign in, we can't capture them. And then when that also comes down to reimbursement for that membership, they will not if they are not signing in.
Well, if you put your number in, do they have my number to know to add it to that?
Scotty?
Yes. So I'm one of these?
Yes.
I'm one of these 306 people.
Have you been transferred over yet?
Do you
No,
know?
I didn't. I mean, I'm on the other board. I'm on the other. Hey, I'm on the hospital deal. So I don't.
Oh, so if you're on,
Okay. Well, I don't. I'd rather keep. I'm fine with where I'm at, but I just wondered if you were actually getting all the people that were coming there. So I'm sure everybody converted because there's a lot of guys that I work out with that work for the county.
yeah.
Okay.
It's just, they have to make sure that so if you look, you got 306 people, but you only have 428 visits in a week.
Right.
So some of those, either they're not coming or they're not checking in. So if they want credit, they have to check in.
Take their card and put their
Put their
card at the
card.
thing.
Yeah, Kurt.
Yeah. Well, I got. When you keep losing cards, you keep I hate to ask for new ones. What urgent care are you at if people need to see you?
I am at Urgent Care West, the one in Hazelwood. I have our
Okay.
front office in there, and it's very private. They can just come in and see me. And
Okay. Okay.
Visit.
That's all the questions I have.
Has anybody got any other questions? Tommy or Brandon?
Just one question, I guess, maybe not to y'all, but maybe to Mr. Moorhead. Are we doing anything to reach the folks that are not coming?
We'd like to see the number, what was it, 197 that you've,
167.
167. We need to get that number up because I'm guessing that the sample size is big enough to where we have the same number of people with those problems that haven't been diagnosed, and that's the ones that cost us money. So we're trying everything we can to get people into the programs, be healthier employees, and also save on claims. We've brought on PPCN for the disease management to where the drugs will be for free for the cardiovascular and diabetes. So we're trying everything. Back in the spring, we did an employee survey, and about 90% of the respondents said that they would take part of this program if it was for free. Some counties have moved to where it is not voluntary, but if you want to receive discounts on your health insurance, you'll participate. We haven't gone there yet, but we'd love to see higher participation because we know these things cost us money, and this is a good sample size, and we know that we've got those problems elsewhere.
Yeah, hopefully that, I've seen the numbers growing there, so hopefully that'll continue once they start talking to one another and
Yeah.
seeing it's a good thing, and you guys are not banging them over the head, so hopefully that'll continue.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's coming, right?
Yeah.
I have been impressed with the number of employees that are coming to the fitness center,
Yeah.
at least that I see there.
And I see them when because I'm there in all
Right.
hours of the day sometimes, and I do see them, and I stop and talk to them and ask them questions. And I've always told them if they see me out, they can more than welcome to stop and talk to me, ask me questions. It does not bother me. You just kind of have to hit me because I usually have my earphones in. But and I've seen them out in public, and they can ask me questions whenever I'm available to them.
Okay. Okay.
Well, it's really impressive how many folks that you've helped with the pre-diabetes, and the PSAs really, you probably saved people from a lot of grief probably by catching that when you did. So I wish everybody would, know to do that and to, check their blood levels and the triglycerides. You can, that's a heart attack. That's what you're checking for that and stuff. I know I'm on a low saturated fat diet, and it's hard. I read a lot of labels, but it does pay a lot of big dividends to not eat those, because when you start reading the labels, you realize how much, how much food has the saturated fat, especially processed foods. And I try to keep under 15 grams a day. And just as an example, a Bojangles sausage biscuit has 25 grams of saturated fat. So that's more grams than I can eat in 2 days. Okay.
That's what I ate yesterday, right after church, too.
Start saying it's making me feel good.
Plus a steak biscuit as well. How much was that?
I don't know. Yeah, that's probably up there. Now, sausage, egg, and cheese, I'm not even going to go there.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It's good, though. I have it every Sunday.
It is good, yeah. Well, maybe moderation's
But you
okay.
said you could every now and then.
Yeah.
I had to shake this morning, so let's say that.
But you can even eat fast food. I mean, I read their menus and nutrition online. You can read that, find out what foods are low in saturated fat. So, this morning I was coming to work and Dunkin' Donuts was open. And I was just thinking about, we went to this healthy Haywood and now we've got a Dunkin' Donuts. But you can even eat healthy at Dunkin' Donuts, believe it or not, because the bagel's good for you. And they have an egg white turkey sausage with veggies in it. That's a wrap, which is really good. So you can eat at these places. You just got to pay attention. There's a little bit of work on your part,
You weren't one of the first 50 people to be in line to get free coffee for a year?
No.
They were lining up at like 4 a.m.
Really?
outside of,
Yeah.
yes.
I don't drink coffee, so that's probably a good thing. Yeah, I saw that, though. I wondered I thought there might be some people camping out.
Yeah, I think there probably was.
Yeah, okay. What, did you get there early?
No, I
okay.
have a friend that went.
Okay. Well, I do believe this is paying dividends, and I appreciate it. Can you join at any time if we
Yeah.
have employees that's not? Because
Yes.
I haven't really joined, but I mean, we have, I've got a protocol that I follow all the time and stuff, but I know I need to probably do that, especially my wife and I.
Yeah, you can join at any time. It did not, and the same thing with the labs, they did not have to come just at the first of the year. They can come any time of the year. Okay. And I'll probably push it out again and say, go to another, I'll probably go back on location in a couple months just to get those people that didn't come and that maybe feel more comfortable at that point. Because a lot of people are scared. It's a needle, I'm going to stick you. Yeah. But then half the people that I stuck, like, I didn't even feel it because I use a very tiny needle. So it's just all about what they prefer. And, and I've had several of the physicians call me and say, thank you for taking labs. And because I just provide them to their primary care physicians also.
And it's less than a bee sting. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had bee stings that hurt a lot worse. So it's really not that bad. It's really not. So, because I was a needle guy. I mean, I'm a big guy, but I was kind of a wimp. So anyway, but I've kind of gotten used to them now. So you get stuck a lot, but it's, people need to go. It's a good thing. So, and to hear a third that's taking advantage of this, that is pretty good, because we have about 500 employees, I guess, right? Or,
Probably closer to 560.
560, okay.
With
So
everybody on the plan.
I think with all the retirees that they sent us, I had over 646 total employees that would come. And I do mail the newsletter to those retiree, the ones that are on the retired list, because they don't get emails. So I do mail them the newsletter each month, so they are still aware of what's available to them also.
So everybody's getting a newsletter?
Yes.
Correct? Okay. As
long as if they open their email, but we've also asked department heads to print it off and try to put it up in areas. I don't know if they are for 100% sure, but we do. When I send it an email, I put it in a PDF form and also in a JPEG form so they can see it on the email, and then they also can print it off if they would like.
I think it's a great success. I mean, from what you've already shown us here, the data proves it's a success, and I'm glad we were able to provide these services to the county employees. And, working out and staying healthy, it's good for your mental health also. Mm-hmm. It makes you feel better. It makes you have a better outlook on life. And I guess with society the way it is, we have our own set of obstacles to overcome with our health. And I see diabetes and health disease are indicative of a very rich society. We eat rich foods, we have plenty to eat, and I've traveled to third world countries before, and you seldom see very many obese people. I've actually commented on some trips I've been on, it's amazing the percentage of people in America that's obese, and we have these diseases that go hand in glove with the lifestyle that we live. And, years ago, I'm sure go back a generation or two, and people eat side meat out of the smokehouse and fried potatoes in the morning, but they went out and worked in the field all day long. Now we have modern conveniences, and we sit around. We sit around too much. And I've heard some of the county staff talk about how they go out on their break and walk a few steps, and it makes them feel better and burns calories and reduces that sedentary type lifestyle. So,
I see a lot of the people from HHSA come over at lunchtime, and they'll walk the track at lunchtime, and they'll tell me, I got my mile, or I got my 2 miles in, and it's encouraging. And then they go back over, because they usually typically try to take an hour for lunch, and that's 30 minutes just to walk, and then they can eat for 30 minutes. And it's also good for their mental health to walk. My kids tell me every day, have you worked out, Mommy? No. Well, can you please? Because you're being a little angry with us. So I understand it completely. We did bring y'all goodie bags, so I will just set them back here. So they're for each one of y'all, so that it has a T-shirt, a water bottle, and your lunchbox in it also.
Well, I appreciate y'all coming today, and I have talked to some employees and some departments here in the courthouse, and they're real excited about it, and I think they kind of feed off each other, so I'm sure that's what's happening all over. So thank y'all for coming.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank y'all for that. Okay, our next item is the U.S. Forest Service proposed plan for the Nantahala and Pisgah Forest, and we have our U.S. Forest Collaboration Specialist, Alice Cohen, this morning. This is under Attachment 3, and we had met with the Forest Service earlier in the month, and we asked them to come to this because they want the public's participation, and there's no better way than to describe what y'all are doing and get this out over the airwaves. So welcome this morning.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here, and it's kind of nice to be juxtaposed next to your fitness program. So I can also encourage everyone to get out into your national forests and onto your public lands to work out. It's beautiful out there. So yes, this is a big time right now. We have just recently released our proposed plan for the Nantahala and Pisgah National Forest. It's over 1 million acres. And here's just an overview. It covers 18 of our western North Carolina counties. And just as an overview, our Forest Service is different than Park Service. We are all about multiple use and sustainable use of our public lands. And so we cover everything from access and transportation to climate change to recreation and everything in between. So we are a multi-use agency. And within this plan, we have really had a lot of public input. It's probably, we've received more public input than any other plan that's been revised. And that's partially because we're under new guidance. 2012 planning rule has required us to collaborate more than ever before. So it's a great opportunity for counties and individuals, communities to get involved, and they certainly have. We've provided a lot of opportunities for that. I also did a review of local county and municipality plans, any plans I could find for the 18 counties. It ended up being a lot. And that's a requirement also of our 2012 planning rule, is to really look at how are our neighboring organizations managing, and how can we complement them. We also listen to what are local values, and rather than looking at the whole 1 million acres as uniform, we divided the 2 national forests into 12 geographic areas. And that was intentional to really reflect more of the local voice and local values and what we heard people value about those areas, whether the topography, the views, the scenery, the history, cultural and otherwise. So these geographic areas describe restoration and sustainable recreation opportunities. They describe the connections to the communities. We also have a big emphasis on partnerships now, so there's partnership opportunities listed in each of the geographic areas, and they reflect the places and uses that are important across the forest. So for this county, we have Pisgah Ledge and North Slope. And I'll just point out that there are separate small chapters for each of these 12 geographic areas. And if there's anything you're going to read from these, I would encourage you to read your geographic areas for your county. And I hold them up just to show you that it's just a few pages. So rather than the 2,700 plus pages that the whole full document and environmental analysis contains, these are all on the website. I didn't share them with you as handouts, but I did share this reader's guide. So the reader's guide is also 26 pages, and it's basically your Cliff Notes. So if you get questions from your community or you have questions yourself, hopefully this reader's guide will be a little bit of Cliff Notes for you. We have 4 themes. And connecting people to the land, sustaining healthy ecosystems, providing clean and abundant water, and then we added this last one, partnering with others. And that was because it just kept bubbling up. We just kept focusing on partnerships and hearing from the communities that they want to help us do more. We came out with what we're required to do, which is to analyze for what we project will be our resources, financial and human resources. How much do we think we can accomplish with our budgets and our people? And we put that out there back in 2017 or earlier, and folks said, that's great, but we want to see more, and we're willing to help. So we actually did a whole full additional analysis on the numbers that we mostly received from the public saying, we think that we could have this number of acres in prescribed fire, or this many trails cleared, or this many wildlife openings maintained. So just the gamut of interests out there and the gamut of resources we manage for. So we went ahead and analyzed for a tier 2, and we may or may not get to that tier 2, but now it's been formally analyzed, and we could move forward a little faster because through the analysis, we know what those effects will be on those resources, from air quality to water quality. The partnering with others, the connecting people to the land section, which you also will see in your geographic areas, and again, the public involvement has been amazing, really wonderful. So with the release of this proposed plan, we have started our 90-day comment period. That started on February 14th on Valentine's Day, and it will run through the middle of May. And we really encourage counties and individuals, organizations, everyone who loves our public lands to get involved and comment. And that will also provide you standing for our objection period. So the timeline, let's see, I think I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit. I'll get to the timeline in a minute. I know that, of course, counties are interested in the economics that public lands can offer, and through increased active forest management, whether it's restoration, logging for restoration purposes. For example, if we have a white pine plantation out on our forest and that's not the natural setting for that particular species, we might go in and harvest the white pine so that the oak can grow back in. So restoration projects like that, or for water quality purposes, or those sorts of things. So a wide variety of tools in our toolbox, from any kind of a variety of logging to prescribed fire is another tool that we use as well. And currently we're actually active management, timber harvesting is at about 800 acres. And for tier 1, we're saying we could maybe bump that up to 1,600 acres. And we heard loudly from especially our wildlife interests that that's not enough, because deer, for example, need young forests. And so that can be accomplished either through fire or through logging. And so hunters are really especially interested in those young forests. But also recreationists and other folks, because a variety of species will benefit from the range of ages of forest. So a healthy forest is a resilient forest, And for each of the ecosystems that are in our really diverse landscape here, you really need the broadest range of ages for those forests. So for example, if they're all one age and an insect comes through and attacks that one age forest, you'll lose that whole forest. But if you have a variety of ages, it's just a more resilient system altogether. And it's not just the trees, but it's the whole system. So we're also talking about increasing the sustainability of recreation. Y'all know, especially here in Haywood County, that we have a tremendous amount of recreation, outdoor recreation, and it's growing all the time. And I know you have concerns about emergency medical services and getting out there and protecting folks as they recreate out there. We're focused on increased access to the forest and a sustainable recreation experience, which would lead to a better quality experience as well. So we'll be looking at our trails and our trail system. We have about 1,500 miles of trails across the two forests, but those are our system trails, not our user-created trails. We probably have twice that in user-created trails, and those aren't necessarily sustainable because they haven't necessarily been designed. They could contribute sedimentation to our streams, that sort of thing. So we'll be looking at all of that. And then again, improving road conditions and access. So here's our timeline. We're at the public review, the 90-day public review period. And at the end of that, we're expecting tens of thousands of comments because that's what we've received already for the past several years. And so there's a lot of interest. So after the 90-day comment period, we'll take those comments and we'll absorb that and analyze it and determine what pieces we can possibly adjust in the proposed plan, and then come out with a draft final plan. And at that point, that will take about a year usually. And at that point, that will start, we'll put that back out to the public, and if people feel like we didn't quite get it right, there's something that they really cared about, if they commented during the 90-day comment period, so they have standing at this point, they can come back and object. There's an objection period. And that's another reason why counties are encouraged and others are encouraged to go ahead and comment now so you have standing if there's something we missed. And we hope we haven't, but that would allow you standing. And then, so that would be another 6 months or so. And so we're expecting this final plan to come out probably September of 2021. And in the meantime, we're still being managed under our current plan. So again, key pieces to look at, the stack of, especially the analysis, you know, we're in such a biodiverse area that the species analysis appendix alone is over 600 pages, I believe. So, but for y'all, for your purposes, I really encourage reading the Reader's Guide, the geographic areas, and we have Appendix A of our plan is all of our objectives listed in one spot. So it kind of just pulls all that together. What are we planning to do? But we also created a kind of a graphic of most of our objectives as well. So this is on our website. And I've got a shot of our website here for this particular, for our forest plan. And you'll see it says start here, and it gives you a 2-minute video, overview video, the Reader's Guide. Consolidated objectives is this infographic kind of piece. And then there's 2 story maps on there as well. And we're calling it the goals of different parts of the forest. And then the second one, 4 alternatives. Actually, you can zoom in on the maps within the 4 alternatives story map. And they're just really helpful tools. The first one is basically geographic areas, and the second is the alternatives and how we propose to accomplish our plan. So with that, let's see how we're doing with time. Pretty good? Okay. Do y'all have any questions at this point? Because I have some more material I can share as well.
Yeah, and looking at your, I don't know if the overhead showing everything that we received, but I saw your your timber harvest schedule, and it fluctuates pretty drastically over the years. Does Forest Service let out boundaries for cutting based on market price? I mean, in a repressed price like we're in one now. People I know it's in the logging industry are really suffering right now because the market is so repressed. Do you base that cutting schedule, does that factor in, or are you just on a time when it gets ripe or the boundary gets ready to harvest, you just go ahead and let the contracts out here regardless of market value, or how do you determine?
That's a great question. And it also pushes into some of the details of our proposed alternatives for how we would accomplish our plan. And so what we're proposing is the same amount of timber harvesting and active management in all three of our action alternatives. And it's not based on commercial, on the prices, the current prices. It's really based on restoration of the health of our forest.
Just best management practice for the forest.
Best management
If it's ready to
practices.
cut, it's ready to cut.
And then the reality is, to design a timber harvest that anyone would bid on, they do have to consider some of that, but the overarching objective would be for restoration purposes, which is not the way we used to do business at all, but it is now, and it's all about the ecosystem health. So they may have to make a larger package, for example, in order for it to be attractive to a mill or a logger to get in there. And we looked at, y'all probably heard about our suitability studies, and people were thinking that we were going to clear cut the whole forest. Or others have thought that we are going to turn the whole forest into designated wilderness, and neither of those are true. There are some myth busters on our website as well to address that. But basically, what's operable on our forest that's not in designated areas, that's not a rocky cliff that has access in some way, is really about 240,000 acres, 260,000 acres of the 1 million acres. So we're looking at our operable base and then determining where in those areas we can do some restoration to make our forests more resilient. And we're thinking of climate change. We're thinking of, we have the hemlock woolly adelgid as an example, or some people can think of kudzu, the invasive species that we have, non-native invasives, but also just the unknown. Like, we didn't have mountain biking when we had our last plan drawn up. So we don't know what will happen in the end of this generation. And that's kind of how we think, the time frame we think of as a generation. So we're working to make our forests as resilient as possible. And we're also conscious of our local economies. So we are really sensitive to the fact, and we've talked with a lot of loggers and a lot of local communities about their logging businesses and how we can accomplish that. And that's where the access piece comes in too. Wherever possible, we're providing more access and really looking at those operable acres. And that's kind of a newer term. We haven't been using that in the past. Operable acres. It makes more sense to the public rather than some of our technical terms. So did I get to?
Yeah, the reason I ask, I think Commissioner Angel and I sat on another board, and it was discussed at a meeting that some of the timber harvest, some of those proceeds go back to our school systems. Mm-hmm. Some of that money trickles out of that, and that's the reason I asked the cutting schedule. Also, you mentioned these invasive species. The generation before us saw the American chestnut disappear, and now the hemlock is going by the same way, and now then, these ash borers are hitting our ash trees in the county, and in some areas they're just completely decimating those stands of ash trees. Do you have any plan to mitigate that? I know you tried the ladybugs with the with the hemlock trees, and everybody had a house full of ladybugs for a while. Yeah. Now people's thinking maybe you're turning stink bugs loose for that.
They're in my house too. Actually, that's part of this whole restoration theme, is to make the forest healthy. So There are 11 ecosystems or ecozones that we analyzed for that represent the whole forest, and from high elevation red oak to Music Cove and everything in between. And so each of those ecosystems needs to be resilient within itself. So part of that is to make sure that we have a breadth of ages of the forest, as I mentioned before, to allow for a healthy and resilient system so it can back itself up, basically. So if the adult ash trees are more sensitive, we still have the seeds in the ground. We still have the next generation regeneration that can happen after it's the standing trees are down. So, and that's just an example, but basically creating the most resilient forest is the way that we can address these unknowns.
Yeah. Well, the forest in our county is a huge draw for tourism. As you mentioned, people get out and hike and bike, and, it's just a great area to live in and to be around. So, one other thing, we've been getting, I don't know if the other commissioners have, about this Lickstone project field trip. Bring a sack lunch and get out, and y'all going to explain some of your management plans on this excursion?
Yeah. So that's a good point too. So of course the plan is overarching and it provides the broad guidance. Lickstone is a great example of a local project. And I really encourage y'all to get involved with that, because that's the local rangers and right on the ground and how we manage, and they can answer a lot of questions and with that one example. So so the Lickstone project is a really good example of how folks can get involved at the project level. And that project is being guided by our current plan. And so just for the broader audience and understanding, just to recognize that the forest plan is kind of the 30,000 level mark, and the project level is like Lickstone. So yeah, hopefully y'all can get involved with that as well.
Do you need us to maybe give you some feedback on our recommendation? You've got 4 management plans here in this layout. I think it's A, B, C, and D, and each one entail different strategies. Do you need us to maybe give you some input on that?
Sure. I mean, we are really encouraging county input. So alternative A is basically status quo. And then we have our 3 action items, action alternatives. We're required to offer the no action alternative, but that alternative A will not satisfy our current needs for the forest. So we really look at alternative B, C, and D. And alternative B allows for the most flexibility at the project level, because we heard that loud and clear from our public. We want to leave it at the Lickstone level and with the ranger and with the counties. And alternative C has the most details in it for those that want more definition at the plan level and less flexibility on the ground level at the project level. And then alternative D is a blend. And we'll be tweaking those alternatives based on input that we receive. But basically, we've tried to create alternatives that balance the interests. So, for example, alternative B has the most recommended designated wilderness or recommended wilderness, but it also has the most active management, because those areas aren't usually the same. Usually the backcountry areas are too rugged and inaccessible for the active management. So it's not in conflict like so many people would think. And so alternative C has the least of those 2. And trails is being treated differently in each. And old growth is another concern that people have. So you'll see that there's a real effort to maintain a win-win kind of approach in each of the 3 action alternatives. So we're going to try to maintain that win-win approach even as we tweak and revise our plan.
Is the funding in place for this plan?
So funding to finish the plan or to do the work?
Yes, you've got the proposed plan, and so is there funding in place to complete the proposed plan, I guess?
Yeah, we have funding to finish the plan through what we're projecting September 2021. It's gone longer than expected, partially because we're under this 2012 planning rule. So, but we get funding through our regional office, and our Washington office is supporting us too. We're one of the pilot forests for this 2012 planning rule, and so we're kind of setting the stage for other forests across the country. And so they're allowing for more resources on this plan, I think, as we, the Forest Service, U.S. Forest Service, figures out how to address the 2012 planning rule. So much more collaboration. My position was created as collaboration specialist. It was created specifically for this plan project.
Okay.
As an example. Any other questions? Okay.
Are you about done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was wondering, I just had two, the American chestnut, do you see some of it coming back? I know they usually come back and then they die, or do you see them getting bigger and bigger? Maybe?
Well, the American Chestnut Foundation is the one that really leads that work, and they work with our research branch of the U.S. Forest Service. And there have been numerous plantings in North Carolina and Virginia, probably other states as well, in the Southern Appalachians. And I haven't been in touch with them in some time, but I believe they're still at what we call the 15/16 hybrid, which is they cross-hybrinated the American chestnut with the Chinese chestnut, and then back hybridized it. So it's back to more of an American chestnut. Okay. And so they've met kind of mixed success with that. They've planted in dry areas and wet areas open, and the different test plots. And it's been kind of mixed reviews. I think that there was another disease of some sort that came in, and they hadn't anticipated that.
Okay.
But like I said, I haven't really followed up on that in some time.
And then I know we were talking with y'all about being able to access some of the high ridges for antennas for communications. Mm-hmm. And I know we're all interested in seeing that happen, because in our area we have communities that are surrounded by the Forest Service, but we can't we can't get communication into those because it's private land. And I know we were talking about possibly being able to access those, which is mostly be on the fringes, which would be the high ridges, which is a lot of times it's private property on one side and public on the other. But we would like, I know we've all talked, and we'd like to see that possibly be able to happen.
Yeah, and definitely talk with. Excuse me. That is the project level, and talking with the ranger, as we mentioned in our previous meeting, and through our special uses permits process, that's a possibility.
Okay.
I actually went to the meeting they had at Lake Logan and did speak with one of them, so I've got his card and his contact information. So
great.
May have to move forward with that.
Great. Good.
Is anybody else?
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for coming this morning.
Thank you.
This will get out on the airways and people can
Great.
hear about it.
Appreciate that. Appreciate the time.
Okay, our next item is the Haywood County Tourism Development Authority mid-year report. We have our TDA Director, Lynn Collins, here this morning. That's under Attachment 4. Welcome, Lynn.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman.
Morning.
Good morning.
Just as a reminder, the occupancy tax collections do run 2 months behind. So these numbers that you're looking at today is the mid-year report. They run through the month of December. We will be receiving the January numbers probably next week. So the first, another thing for you to recall is that our occupancy tax is currently at 4%. And that is broken down in that 3% comes directly back to the TDA for marketing the county overall, and the other 1% is utilized by each of the zip code areas where it's collected. So you'll see this report broken down by 3% and 1%. So the first report that you have in your packet is the 3% report, and this shows the occupancy tax projections and then the actual collections, and then it has the previous year actual collections as well. So through the month of December, we are 13% ahead of budget and 10% ahead of last year. We've had a good season to date. I'm not necessarily thinking that the January numbers will be as good, just simply because of the weather issues that we've had, and it's been a little warmer and a lot rainier, so we'll just have to see. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that. But so far, we're having a great year. The next item in your packet is the 1% report, and this is basically the same kind of report. It's just broken down by zip code. You have the actual numbers for the current year, you have the projected numbers in the middle column, and then you have the numbers for the previous year. And if you look at that, all of our zip codes really are ahead for the year except for Canton, and that really is sort of an anomaly. We had 1 month last year where a property that had not been reporting finally came in and reported, and they paid it all in 1 month. So that sort of skewed those numbers a little bit. So Canton is in line with everybody else right now. In the bottom column of numbers that you see running across gives you the percentage that each zip code accounts for within the county. Maggie Valley being the largest, then Waynesville, then Lake Junaluska, Canton, and Clyde. The next slide that you have, we break the occupancy tax collections down by the different categories of accommodations that we have, and this is how we break all of the accommodations down in our visitor guide and online, and so we track it each month. And you'll see that normally the vacation rentals and hotels are somewhat comparable, but in December of this year, we saw a spike in the vacation rentals that is much higher than what we normally see. December is usually driven by the weather around the holidays. If we have a warmer weather holiday, you're going to see the vacation rentals higher. If we have a colder, snowier holiday, you're going to see the hotel motels come in higher because folks aren't able to get to the vacation rentals. But this is a spike a little bit higher with the vacation rentals than what we have seen probably overall, at least as far as I can remember. And I know that our finance chairman went back and checked the last 4 years, and the spike was higher than any of those. So this gives you an idea of the different types of accommodations. And one of the questions that I usually get asked has to do with the campgrounds, because that, for the most part, shows up as zero. We do not collect the occupancy tax on RV spaces or campground spaces, tent camping spaces. If any of the parks have semi-permanent structures, like park models or some little cottages or cabins, we do collect the occupancy tax on that. So that's why that's such a low number. Just to give you an idea of some of the advertising that we do, this is something new that our ad agency is doing. They're designing our ads to be more advertorial-like, so it looks more like a story than it does just a regular ad. You'll see below some of the different publications that we have advertised in over the past year. And on the next slide, you will see a 2-page spread that was in Our State magazine. This was done in conjunction with Maggie Valley and Waynesville. Since Maggie Valley and Waynesville are the two largest collectors of the occupancy tax, they have set aside a pot of their money to do advertising for those specific zip code areas. So we are able to leverage that by pulling together with them and being able to purchase an ad like this. So you'll see that the left side of the page is the county part of the ad, and then Maggie and Waynesville split the other page. This was the October issue of Our State magazine, and there's another similar ad coming out in the April edition of Our State magazine. The next slide has to do with public relations. These are just some of the areas that we have received free media this year. Southern Living, they actually sent a travel writer here for the Elk Fest. And she was here for several days, and we managed to get her all over the county. And so she has continued to write articles at least once a month for the online version of Southern Living. So we're still getting good exposure from having her here. We also had UNC TV here for the Elk Fest, and they shot quite a bit of footage while they were here. And so in addition to the Elk Festival footage airing, they have also aired some of the other footage on UNC TV as well. So these are just some of the different things that have been written about Haywood County in the last few months. The next two slides are the projects that have been funded through the 1% zip code funding. Just to give you an idea of how that money is spent in addition to the co-op advertising. So you'll see a lot of projects, festivals and events. Also some capital improvement projects are included in here as well, just to give you an idea. We do look for a strong summer season this year. We've got lots of new events scheduled throughout the county. We have at the Smoky Mountain Event Center, we've got a new BMW motorcycle group coming in. We've got a Ghost Town Frontierland Six Gun Territory reunion that should be big. At the festival grounds in Maggie, we have a new Jeep rally that's taking place. That's getting a lot of traction through social media right now. We also have a new indie music festival that's going to take place at the festival grounds, and there are some other events that are expanding, maybe doing more days than they have in the past or moving around. I know we've got a couple of new folk mood events coming out towards the Maggie Way, and then in Canton they've got some new things going on as well. So that's a real brief update. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Kirk, I know you're on the TDA board.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I mean, obviously you can see the increase that we've had in the county over the last year, and also one of the things that we've highlighted at the meeting is the definite increase in Airbnbs and that type of thing. And I think of at least, are there 1,000
Over 1,000
homes? Over 1,000 homes are used for weekly rentals in Haywood County, which, I mean, that's pretty substantial.
Yeah, it is.
There's a company called AirDNA, and they scrub information from Airbnb, and we get a monthly report on that shows the increase month over month. It also shows the occupancy and the average daily rate and things of that nature, and it tells you how many are the whole house rentals or how many are just room rentals and equivalent to hotel rentals. So that's an interesting topic every month.
Do I have any questions for Lynn? Lynn, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is our Child Community Protection Team Annual Report, and we have our HHSA Social Work Director, Gayla Jones, here, and this is under Attachment 5. Welcome, Gail.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Every year, I come and present our annual report for Community Child Protection Team, and you'll see in my report, I listed as CCPT. It's a lot easier, so that's what we call ourselves instead of getting tongue-tied, saying Community Child Protection Team. So just a little bit about who we are. CCPT is defined through North Carolina General Statute 7B 1406 as a team that is established in each county of the state and is designed to review selected active cases in which children are served by Child Protective Services and cases in which a child died as a result of suspected abuse and neglect. So our group is a lot of different community members as well as agency members, and some of our members are appointed by Board of County Commissioners. And I've listed at the end a list of all of our active members for 2019. Some of those may change during 2020. So we meet quarterly. I've listed our dates on here. We met February 18th, August 19th, November 18th, and also we had a training in May of 2019 in conjunction with our Child Fatality Protection Team. So those were our meetings, and throughout those, we reviewed 3 active Child Protective Services cases, 1 child fatality, and we participated in the CFPT training that was hosted by the Division of Health and Human Services. So just some of those actions and recommendations during those meetings. We just kind of have an open discussion about, is there any system deficiencies, anything else we can do in the community to kind of help some of these. So one of the big things that we talked about was to enhance our communication with REACH, domestic violence. We work with families who experience domestic violence, and just working on that collaboration with those community partners and strengthening those relationships. Also, in some of the Child Protective Services cases, we talked about bilingual substance abuse services in the county, more accessible transportation services, and I think we're getting better than we've been at that, but a lot of our clients are in rural areas of the county, and sometimes that is an obstacle for them to be able to participate in substance abuse services or domestic violence services. And also just the need for more child therapists to serve children in our county as well. Working with these families and the trauma that these children experience, there's a great need for that. So those are just a few of our recommendations and actions. And if you have any questions, I'll certainly answer any of those.
Do I have any questions?
Yeah, these suggestions to help more accessible transportation service for the county, could you elaborate on that, or what we need to do better?
Well, I think it's just reaching those rural clients that are out in the, in the White Oak or the Fines Creek and those types of things. I think we've come a long way, and we are, we do see transportation through mountain projects and other avenues, but it's getting some of our clients that need some of these services for substance abuse or domestic violence, getting them there to those services regularly. A lot of times they don't have transportation. Sometimes they can't afford the gas to get there. Intensive outpatient treatment for substance abuse is 3 times a week. So, that just kind of puts families at a disadvantage if they don't have that support and transportation. A lot of times if we have cases open, our social workers are trying to help get them there as well. So I think we are doing a better job. I think we've just got to make sure we're continuing to look at those clients.
Just wanted to make a comment, the state requires us to make sure you guys are set up and
Yes.
doing that job, so we appreciate that.
We appreciate everybody that comes and meets quarterly and takes their time to give input.
That's true.
It looks like there's a good spread across the board of the people that we got, a good representation, so I think that was good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is the Child Fatality Prevention Team Annual Report for 2019. We have our Health and Human Services Public Health Director, Patrick Johnson, here to give that report, and that's under Attachment 6. Welcome.
Good morning. I should mention that Gayla has been up since midnight with a child in the emergency department, one of the foster care kids. So that's very impressive. I would like to talk about the child prevention, fatality prevention team. Lisa Davis has been the chair of this committee for about 10 plus years, but she retired last year. I did provide a report to you on this team. The General Assembly does mandate that each county does establish this team to review causes of death in children, and our team has been established since 1995. We review all deaths of Haywood County children aged birth to 18 years in order to understand the causes of death in children, identify gaps in services to children, and to prevent future deaths, and to make and implement recommendations to prevent future deaths. The local team provides an annual report to the state CFPT. So we meet 4 times a year, and we review the deaths from the previous year, and training is conducted when there is no deaths to review. In 2017, we had 1 death. The cause was undetermined. In 2018, we had 3 deaths, 1 suicide, and 2 birth asphyxia. The team continued, the actions were that we would address and support safe sleep initiatives for the prevention of sudden unexplained infant deaths and sudden infant death syndromes. And we continue to promote safe sleep at the health department and availability of pack and play cribs for eligible parents. And in 2019, we gave out 27, primarily from the Haywood Rotary Club. Any employee at Haywood Health and Human Services can give those pack and play cribs to parents. Since 2017, we have not had a safe sleep death in Haywood County. Youth suicide is a focus of our attention. We have had 2 trainings now on that. In 2020, we are going to focus our attention, continue our attention on that. We are going to use some of our funding on one of our agreement addenda to promote QPR, which is question, persuade, and refer. It's sort of like CPR, except for recognizing somebody who is at risk for suicide and figuring out how to refer them for services. So that's going to be our focus in the coming year. And that's my report.
Questions?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to clarify that wasn't Gayla's child. Gayla was performing that service for the county. There was a child in DSS custody that she was with at the hospital all night.
She was
last
on the
night.
job.
So she was on the job doing her job all night last night.
Yes.
So,
You look pretty good to be up on that.
yeah.
That's pretty good. Thank you.
You know, I serve on that board, and it amazes me the dedication and folks like Gayla that spend the time that they do to help our county move forward and with working with these families and these kids. So I think it's kudos to all our staff and everybody that works at HHS. They do an awesome job.
Now we're all waiting for the next report from Patrick.
Are you here for that, Rex? The coronavirus? All right, okay.
It's not funny.
Okay. So our next item is our coronavirus update. And Patrick's going to give us an update on that and maybe give us some good pointers on this. So appreciate you putting this together, Patrick.
Sure.
Okay, wait a second. This will get out all over the airwaves today.
Okay, what I wanted to share is just a brief primer on this and what we're doing in public health. Everybody has heard so much about this, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about it. Coronavirus, as we know, travels about 6 feet, so what you need to know, and it's unknown how long it can last on surfaces, so what you need to know is the risk is if you have a close contact, and we need to be being careful about disinfecting surfaces. The difference, one of the things we should realize is something like measles can travel up to 100 feet, and we know it lasts for hours on surfaces. That's some differences with diseases. So with COVID-19, you're going to hear lots of different things, but this is just looking at different diseases, how deadly it is and how much it spreads. So the infectivity with COVID, you're going to hear 2.3 to 2.8 people per person who has the disease gets infected. So if somebody has the disease, between 2 and 3 people get infected. And then the mortality rate, it's about 1.5, so it is more than seasonal flu. And, you know, we don't have a vaccine, so it is a cause for concern, obviously. So looking at this and comparing it to different diseases, you can look at why our parents were so concerned about polio and why they desperately wanted a vaccine, because 10% of kids who came down with polio died from it. And then if you look at seasonal flu, 0.1% of people who come down with seasonal flu die from it. And then look over to the far right, you see if somebody has a case of measles, 15 people are potentially going to become infected with it. And measles has about the same type of mortality rate as COVID has right now. About 1.5% of people who get measles are going to die from it. So I just wanted to compare, let you look at this in comparison to other diseases. Now, this is one I was actually going to pull this slide, but this is a case of somebody who came into the United States before they had travel restrictions. If you look at the bottom of this slide, this person arrived on January 15, before they were doing travel screening. He came straight from Wuhan, China. Day 1, he went to work, he had a cough. Day 2, he felt like he had a fever, he had a cough and fatigue. Day 3, he stayed home. Day 4, he went to urgent care. This came from the New England Journal of Medicine. That is Celsius. It's a normal temperature, 98.6. But he told them where he was. They sent him to the hospital. They tested him. He tested positive on day 2 in the hospital. Throughout his stay, he had a cough. If you look down at the bottom, he had vomiting and diarrhea, so he had GI symptoms along with this. This gentleman was fairly young. His illness was not that severe, but he had a cough throughout his stay. He was in Washington State. The first time I presented this to the Board of Health and Human Services, I said, he didn't infect anyone. But, you know, now it makes me wonder, because Washington State is where they're having so much of this underlying disease. So it makes me wonder how many people he might have infected. But nevertheless, he was a person who had relatively mild symptoms. Okay, so this is what I need folks to really understand. This is a rapidly evolving situation. I updated these slides just yesterday. We know now that there is community spread in Washington State. We have had a U.S. death. I guess there's 2 now. A case in Rhode Island that came from Italy. We're going to know now that there's going to be expanded testing guidelines, and that was all this past weekend. The infectivity I mentioned, 2.2 to 2.8. So about an average person with this disease infects about 2 to 3 other people. And there have been super spreaders reported, meaning a case can infect more than 10 people. The fatality rate approximately is 1.5. You might hear a little bit lower, you might hear a little bit higher. A high attack rate in confined quarters, and substantial number of healthcare personnel were infected early on, but now healthcare personnel know to use airborne and contact precaution, gloves, gown, N95, plus eye protection. Older adults, and sometimes we think that's 65 and older, but it's 50 and older, persons with comorbidities, and we've heard that, diabetes, cardiovascular, but also smokers. might be at higher risk for disease. I will say at the end of this, it's an opportunity to stop smoking. Some patients with GI symptoms have been present, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Okay, what we don't know, whether the virus can be transmitted by indirect contact, meaning on surfaces. So we need to up our surface cleaning for sure. Or if it's transmitted by asymptomatic persons. That has not been established yet, but it might be by the end of this presentation, who knows. The possibility of spread by fecal material, it has been isolated in stool and by some patients have had diarrhea. The frequency of super spreaders is not established. We don't know when this outbreak is going to peak and the numbers of countries that are going to be impacted. And is this the first COVID-19 season? Okay, what are we doing? We have a weekly state call. It's very packed with information for us. We have our communicable disease person, our preparedness person, our nursing personnel, and myself on that call. We are preparing. We send out guidance to our Haywood County healthcare personnel as it arrives. We've been sending out guidance throughout this time frame. The critical area of focus for for public health is to prevent the virus from moving through quarantine and isolation and rapid identification and contact tracing. Throughout all of that, we have to protect confidentiality. There's 3 categories: a person under monitoring, that means they're asymptomatic, and a person under investigation, that means somebody who has symptoms, who has been tested, and then there's a case. Testing, on Thursday we had clear guidance, on Friday we had different guidance. So they expanded the guidance. So we know that we have guidelines from the CDC and the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. We would know how exactly the guidelines to test someone, but approval has to be obtained from the North Carolina Department of Public Health Communicable Disease Branch, and we would obtain that approval. If somebody wanted to know if they should test someone, that we would ask them specific questions. If they met the criteria that we have today, we would contact the North Carolina Department of Public Health Communicable Disease Branch to get that approval. We all keep hearing that they want state labs to have approval for testing. Every week we keep waiting for the North Carolina State Lab to have that approval. We'll hear tomorrow whether or not they have that, but up until this point they have not had that approval to test. We do have a table in front of the Health and Human Service lobby with COVID-19 educational material, quite a few one-pagers out there for the public to pick up to get. And we meet with partners. We meet with the emergency management leadership tomorrow and provide updates as they come in. I have 2 presentations set up for next week, and this is my last slide. The more you learn, the less you fear. We all need to keep learning about this information. This could have changed since this morning. 87,000 cases globally, the majority of cases and deaths in China, 62 countries, more than 70 cases. The asterisk is because we know it's community spread. 8 states, that might be 9 at this point. Outbreaks in Italy, South Korea, Iran, and Japan. But I believe we need to pay attention to this. In the United States this year, influenza, 29 million flu cases, 280,000 hospitalizations, 16,000 deaths, 4 in Haywood County, and that's 1 young person. That's 4 deaths. 115 deaths in North Carolina. So we need to understand, or don't forget to get your flu shot. And why should we get a flu shot? For providers to be able to have fewer flu cases, but for providers to be able to rule out the difference between influenza and COVID, to cover cough and sneezes properly, to wash your hands, we keep hearing that, and if there's an opportunity to quit smoking and vaping, this is it, because you want healthier lungs. There is a call line for people with questions, and that's my presentation.
Any questions?
Any questions?
So the symptoms, the symptoms, they kind of mirror, somebody could think they've just got a stomach virus or a bug, but the cough looks like the cough hangs around.
Lower respiratory primarily. It mimics influenza. That's why they're encouraging people to get a flu shot.
How successful is the coronavirus testing?
Well,
some people say, even the flu test, it may or may not tell the truth. Is that correct? Sometimes you get tested for the flu and they'll tell you, well, even though you didn't test positive, you may have it.
I haven't heard that so much. You mean a false negative? A false negative.
False negative.
I haven't heard that many false negatives with influenza, but I haven't heard that many false negatives. Well, I know there's been some difficulties with the tests. We have heard that also. So, I think they've admitted that, but they're, it's all new right now. So.
Right.
I was reading up on this, and I think you rightly point out how many people have died of the flu. I know we seem to be in a little bit of a panic, and I guess we want to keep an eye on this, and it is an evolving story. But really, 16,000 deaths with the flu, and you can easily get a flu shot. So and keep that warded off, and I think that's what we need to really focus on is. And that's a good point you made, Patrick, that if you get a flu shot and if you start having symptoms and you've had a flu shot, they know I guess you have to do a different test for this virus.
And I believe they're going to expand the testing to allow for that.
Right, okay. And then I also, I was reading that the Surgeon General was telling people to quit buying masks.
Yes. Because
the health professionals can't get masks that they need, not because of this virus, but because of just the everyday working conditions that they're in. And evidently the virus goes through masks anyway. So don't everybody be buying that mask.
That's correct. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, that's correct.
And then I also read where the Israelis are working on a vaccine, I think, they're real close on that. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but evidently Israel had kind of stumbled onto this, and they may have a vaccine for this in the next month or so, which that seemed to be hopeful to me. I don't know if you've seen that, but yeah, you probably Google Israeli medicine or something like that, but they're working on a vaccine right now, and I think they'd stumbled on it. I don't remember the exact what the article said, but that seemed real hopeful to me also. So, but I appreciate you coming and doing this, and there's just a lot of simple things like washing your hands, maybe quit smoking that people can do to really, if this does become more widespread, they can try to help keep that tamped down, and it seems to me that is. Hopefully, as it does evolve, maybe, it will peak out and start going back down, hopefully.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. Is it true that I read also that warmer weather, as we move into the warmer months, it's possibly will mitigate it?
It happens with influenza. The downturn with influenza happened last week. In late February, it starts to decrease. March, April, it goes away in May. If this is like an influenza, that might happen. But the concern is if it's the first COVID season, if it comes back next year. That's the concern. Because it's not like SARS. SARS, there were like 8,000 cases and it went away. This is 90,000 cases or whatever the number is, and 60 plus countries. So it's not like any other coronavirus.
Appreciate you. You've really studied on this. I appreciate that. Sounds like you really following it too, if you were updating this yesterday. So I appreciate it, Patrick.
Sure.
Appreciate you watching out for us.
Thanks.
Okay. And I know we're prepared, so appreciate doing all that work. Okay, so that concludes that section of our agenda. Do we have any discussion adjustment to the agenda at this time? Okay, I did want to mention that Commissioner Pless is not here today because he had a work conflict, and so he's, I think he had to be out of town for his job, for his work, so that's why Commissioner Pless isn't here today. So I'll move on to our consent agenda. Our first item is to request approval of the February 17th, 2020 special and regular meeting minutes. The next is to request approval of the purchase of additional access controls in the detention center from the Johnson Controls in the amount of $44,395 to be paid from budgeted funds for this fiscal year. That's under attachment 7. Number 3 is to request approval of the purchase for additional access controls in multiple county facilities from Haynes Technologies in the amount of $38,741 to be paid from budgeted funds for this fiscal year. That's under attachment 8. And then the next item 4 is to request approval of budget amendment, general funds from the Health and Human Services Public Assistance, $4,761 for additional federal funds awarded for the Low Income Energy Assistance Program for this fiscal year, and that's under attachment 9. Does anyone have any questions about the consent agenda this morning? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to our regular agenda, and our first item is to request approval of a fee increase from $795 to $895 for pre-placement assessments effective July 1st, 2020. We have their Health and Human Services Social Worker Director, Gayla Jones, and she's still awake. And that's under attachment 10. Welcome again.
Thank you. I'll just try to give a brief overview of what a pre-placement assessment is. It's just a collection of information that we gather on potential adoptive parents that goes from their birth and how they were raised all the way through where they are now and their desire to adopt. We do comprehensive criminal checks, child welfare protective services checks to determine the suitability of them being an adoptive parent. And again, we're authorized through general statute to complete these for members of the community. Also, private adoption agencies complete these assessments as well. For about the last 7 to 9 years, the agency has charged $795 to complete these. And typically when we're looking at private adoption agencies, they're anywhere from $1,500 to $2,200. Could go above that, just depending on it. I believe that we are offering a reasonable rate for families in Haywood County. However, I would just respectfully request an additional $100 from $795 to $895 to help cover expenses for a part-time worker who is taking these cases off of my regular social workers, and she is going out and completing these PPAs on families to present to the court for adoption.
Does anybody have any questions for Gayla? Brandon, you're on that board, right?
That's right. Yeah, I asked them if it was enough, because it hadn't been up in so long, and I think we're in the right area. I mean, considering what others are paying for this, so it's not that much more, but it will cover our costs. So.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. We approve the fee increase from $795 to $895 for pre-placement assessments effective July 1, 2020.
So
Make
moved.
the motion.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gayla. Okay, our next item under the regular agenda is to request approval of the following new fees and fee changes for services provided by public health to be paid by patient, citizen, insurance carrier, and/or Medicaid effective July 1, 2020. We have our HHSA Public Health Director, Patrick Johnson, and our Business Services Director, Michelle Haynes, here this morning. Welcome. And this is under Attachment 11.
Good morning. Yes, we're here today to present a few new fees and some fee revisions for 3 different departments in public health. That would be for environmental health services, laboratory services, and clinical services, and I'll go through each of those departments individually. Just to let you know, these fees have all been presented to our Health and Human Services Finance Committee, and it was voted on to recommend for approval. It then went to our Health and Human Service Agency Board, who also voted to recommend it as well. So our final step is here today, and if it is approved, these fees will begin July 1st, 2020 with the new fiscal year. So on your attachments, the very first one you have is for environmental health services. And we have 3 fees to present there, and all 3 of these are new fees. We do not have any existing fees for these services. The first one is $100 for a plan review for lodging establishments. The second is $150 for plan reviews on new mobile food units, and that's your food trucks. And the last one is $75 for plan reviews for push carts, and that's your smaller, like hot dog carts.
Yeah.
We currently have a fee for restaurant reviews, and that's $250. We're not asking for any change there. We're just asking for approval for these 3 new fees for environmental health services.
Any questions for that? Do we need to vote on these individually or just all as one? Okay. All as one. Okay. Okay.
Any questions there? If not, we'll move on to the laboratory services. That's your next attachment. So we're requesting a new fee for laboratory services. That's a lab processing fee of $10. Right now, we don't have any fee established for lab processing. And we're also asking for a fee formula to use with our lab charges, and that would be the cost of the test plus the $10 processing fee. That way, any changes that we encounter, we don't have to come to you with individual requests for fees. The use of a fee formula has worked well for us for some programs, such as our vaccinations. You approved that a couple of years ago. That way, we don't have to keep coming to you every time the cost changes and we need to make changes. With the lab fees, I think it's the very last page in your attachment, you have a little spreadsheet that shows you some of our most commonly performed tests and the result, some increases, some decreases with these lab fees. So that's a little reference sheet for you.
Any questions about lab fees?
All right, no questions. We'll move to the very last one. That is for our clinical services, and we have 4 existing fees, and we're asking for those 4 to be revised. You'll see we have a prenatal profile, an iron building capacity, toxin, and auto-thin-pref. We want to increase these fees so that it would actually be the current Medicaid reimbursement rate, so it would bring us more in line with the Medicaid rate.
Do I have any questions for that? Brandon, your board, I guess, is recommended these.
Full support, yeah.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, if so, hearing no questions, I'll ask for a motion to approve the new fees and fee changes for services provided by the public health to be paid by patient, citizen, insurance carrier, and/or Medicaid, effective July 1st, 2020, and those fees are listed in A, B, and C of Attachment 11.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Michelle and Patrick. Okay, our third item of the regular agenda under Attachment 12 is to request approval of a resolution appointing a special board of equalization and review. We have our tax assessor, Judy Hickman, here this morning to talk about that.
Sorry, I'm a little slow this morning.
Okay.
This is kind of a 2-part request. For the first request, I'm requesting the approval of 5 board members and 1 alternate for the 2020 Board of Equalization and Review. Would you like for me to read the names?
Yeah, go ahead and read the names. Mm-hmm.
Jim Francis, Jimmy Flynn, Evelyn Cooper, Grover Bradshaw, and Ted Carr. And for the alternate, Chip Killian.
Okay, so we had 6 applications. We had a 7-member board last year because we had a lot of applications. And this year, we only had 6 applications, and so I just asked Judy if she would to just, the 5 members that had served to be the board, and then the alternate to be Chip Killian. He had put an application in, and so he could be the alternate, and then I felt like that would be a good way to, that way we have all 6 applicants being able to serve in some capacity. So is that okay with everybody? Okay. And then I'll move on to, we need to appoint a chair. So Jimmy Flynn had served last year as the chair of the board of E&R, and then Evelyn Cooper was vice chair. So I was wondering if it's okay. And I've heard good reports. Jimmy does a great job doing that, and so does Evelyn as the vice chair. So I need a motion to appoint Jimmy Flynn as the chair of the E&R board.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay. And then if I could have a motion to appoint Evelyn Cooper as the vice chair of the Board of Equalization Review.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And then let's see, we had talked about.
We not need to vote on the board
Yeah.
as well?
All right, so the resolution,
right.
yeah. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution appointing a special board of equalization and review, and their names are on the resolution. I won't have Judy read it because it's 2 pages, but it basically has the 5 that she had just mentioned, and it has the chair and the vice chair, and then the dates. What are the dates, Judy?
It's important to know that the dates that we will be accepting applications for the Board of Equalization and Review appeals, we will begin accepting April 9th, and we will continue through April 30th at 5 p.m.
So anyone that wants to appeal their value can apply between Thursday, April 9th and Thursday, April 30th to do that. And also the pay on this will be $100 a day per board member and $130 per day for the chair, and then they will get mileage per the county rate for that. Any business where they have to maybe visit a site. They rarely have to do that, but sometimes you do, so. Okay. Good.
Yeah, I need to vote
Okay.
on it.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution appointing a special board of equalization and review.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Just one question.
Okay.
This board won't have to deal with the revow that's going on right now. That'll be next year's board that will,
Right, this is just for
Yeah.
2020
right, I mean, they'll,
Yeah, next year's board will be,
interesting.
for revow, yeah.
they'll be busier than this year. Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
We did that all right, Tracy? Okay, she gave us a thumbs up. She didn't talk much.
That'll work.
And I know. She kind of whispers over there. Okay, the next order is approval of a resolution celebrating the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States and the founding of the League of Women Voters. And I'll read that. It's fairly short. It says, whereas an organized movement to enfranchise women began in July 1848 at a convention in Seneca Falls, New York. And whereas through the efforts of brave and courageous women, referred to as the suffragists, who sacrificed family and their personal life and their financial resources for over 70 years to gain equal rights for women, especially the right to vote. And whereas women, men, black and white, supported the women's suffrage movement for women to gain the constitutional right of having a voice in making the laws that govern them. And whereas the women's suffrage movement led to the passage of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States in 1919, with the ratification by the states by the summer of 1920. And whereas the National Women's Suffrage Association dissolved in 1920 to create the League of Women Voters of the United States to register voters and educate all voters. And whereas the League of Women Voters of North Carolina was launched on April on October 7th, 1920, on the steps of Guilford County Courthouse by Gertrude Will, a politically active and tireless young woman from Goldsboro, North Carolina. And whereas more than 120,000 women were registered to vote in North Carolina by 1920, and whereas women today constitute a majority vote in our state and the United States and are running for office in higher numbers and more active in the election process than ever before in history. Now therefore be it resolved, the Haywood County Board of Commissioners, that the 100th anniversary of women gaining the right to vote in the founding of the League of Women Voters in the United States and the state of North Carolina is recognized for the impact of these historic accomplishments have on citizen engagement and civic life of the community, the state, and the nation, adopted this second day of March 2020 in Haywood County, North Carolina. And they had requested all 100 counties do this, and I know a lot of counties have passed this resolution, and so I wanted our county not to miss out on that. So can I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay. Thank you all. And then we'll move to page 3. Request approval of a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the County of Haywood, North Carolina, making certain statements of fact concerning proposed bond issue. We have our Finance Director, Julie Davis. Julie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This current refunding that you have the resolution for today is going to take the balance of the 2008 school bonds, and it's going to refund it into a private placement bank loan over the term of 7 years, which is the remaining term left on the bonds. There'll be some legal and financial analysis fees that will be rolled into this, and once all is said and done, we expect about $32,000 per year in savings by doing this refunding on this bond. The bank quotes were received last week, and we were very excited to see some of the rates. While most of them ranged at 1.7, 1.8, we received one that was 1.52%. That was with J.P. Morgan Chase, and so that's the one we've decided to go with. So your resolution and the bond order here are going to reflect that 1.52%. The bond resolution itself, I don't know if you want me to read it or just kind of hit some high spots, or you just want to... I can hit some high spots of it if you'd like for me to. It says it's the resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the County of Haywood, North Carolina, making certain statements of fact concerning the proposed bond issue, whereas the Board of Commissioners is considering the issuance of bonds of the County of Haywood, which shall be for the following purpose: a not to exceed $2.9 million of general obligation refunding bonds to pay the cost of refunding in advance of their maturities, $2.8 million aggregate principal amount of the County of Haywood, North Carolina, Series 2008, maturing on or after March 1st, 2021. We have a bond that was due yesterday. We paid that one. So what this is going to be is refunding all those that are due in the future. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board, meeting in open session on the second day of March 2020, has made the following factual findings in regard to this matter. One is that the proposed bonds are necessary and expedient to lower debt services to the county, or debt service costs to the county, and that the sums estimated for these bonds is adequate and not excessive for the purpose. It goes on to talk about past debt management policies with the county that have been good, which is one of the reasons we've got such a low interest rate on this refunding. It discusses some of the fiscal policies that we recognize have been good for the county, so we're allowed to do this debt. And then the financing team, the county manager and the finance director, with advice from the county attorney, are hereby authorized and directed to retain Parker, Poe, Adams, and Bernstein as bond counsel and First Tryon advisors as financial advisor, and such action is hereby ratified. The county manager and finance director, individually or collectively, are authorized to retain other professionals as in their discretion may be necessary to carry out the transaction described in this resolution.
I need to take a quick recess. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'll be right back. Okay, we'll resume. I'm sorry, I had to take a quick break there. So Julie, go ahead. So we're down to the approving the resolution.
Yes.
I would like to say that thank you for doing that job for us. It's easy money. $32,000 laying on the table. That's good. And
It's very good. We were really pleased at the interest rate.
Yeah,
with
whoever hears of an interest rate at 1.5
and
too.
with, with the financial health that we're in right now as a county, as we talked about in the last budget workshop, it helps. It helps when you go to.
It certainly does.
Yes, so you win on both ends.
Exactly.
I appreciate Julie being proactive and making sure. And the interest rate was 1.52. right?
1.52, and I had a lot of help with this one, too, with our financial analysts and the bond attorneys and Frank.
And the savings you factored in the expenses as well, I'm sure.
Yes. Oh, yes. It's all rolled into one, and the savings is net of all of that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the County of Haywood, North Carolina, making statements of fact concerning proposed bond issue. Is that right? Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Second? Okay. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, then, item 6 is the request approval of the bond order authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $2.9 million general obligation refunding bond of the County of Haywood, North Carolina. And when it says refunding bond, what that is refinancing. I just want to point out, we are refinancing, but we're not putting the payments further into.
Exactly. There are 7 years left on the bonds, and this is going to be a 7-year term.
Right.
So all we're doing is a refinancing to lower the interest rate.
Lower the interest rate. We're keeping the terms the same, and
Exactly.
we're saving money doing that. So it's a little bit different than, most of the time when you refinance your home, you basically get a new loan and it's 30 years again. But this, we're not.
We're not doing
We're
that.
actually just keeping the same term. We're just lowering our payments. So, okay, Julie, go ahead. So I'll read. Let's see. Did I read that? I guess I did.
This is just the bond order authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $2.9 million, and it lays out some of the same things that the resolution had in it, with a whereas of the County of Haywood, North Carolina has issued $7 million, and it's a series 2008. That was 2008 we did that, and it goes on. I'd be glad to read it, or we can just. It's the same thing we just did in the resolution.
And it's in our
quite the same.
packet, so people, it's there. So
There are a couple of things in here, though, that I probably should point out. It says, a sworn statement of the county's debt has been filed with the clerk to the board and is open to public inspection, and that was filed on Friday. And there is a statement of estimated interest that was also filed with the clerk on Friday.
okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the bond order authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $2.9 million general obligation refunding bond to the County of Haywood, right?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Then next is to request approval of a budget amendment allowing the refunding proceeds and debt service payment to be reflected by the county's general ledger.
And all that is we just want to be able to run it through. When we do a refunding, we actually show that we're paying off the bonds and that we're getting proceeds in order to pay them off. So the proceeds are going to be going through the issuance installment loans, and I've put 2.865 because we don't expect it to be 2.865. We don't expect it to be more than that. We have a ceiling of 2.9 million. The 65,000 is kind of an estimate of what some of those closing costs are going to be, and the 2.8 million is actual bonds being paid off.
Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the budget amendment to allow the refunding proceeds and debt service payment to be reflected in the county's general ledger.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Okay. Our next item is to request approval of a proclamation recognizing March 2020 as American Red Cross Month. And we have someone from the Red Cross, Michael Tanner, this morning. I've asked Michael if he wanted to say a few things. Welcome, Michael.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. How y'all doing? My name is Mike Tanner, and I'm the community volunteer lead for the Greater Carolinas region. We cover the 16 counties of Western North Carolina. And I just want to thank you for this proclamation. You know, you're actually filling some pretty big shoes. FDR, President Roosevelt, was declared the first March as Red Cross Month. We really do appreciate that. But the one thing I just really want to say is that, you know, we're very familiar with the Red Cross. You see the Red Cross, especially during disasters and national disasters, worldwide disasters, we get involved. But the Red Cross is 95% volunteers. So there's very few professional paid, if you will, Red Cross employees. I myself am a volunteer. I was telling Mr. Chairman this morning that I just retired as the director, or the former director now, of the National Climate Center in Asheville, and just wanted to fill some time, right? So why not? But the one thing I do want to say also about the Red Cross is you can volunteer as much as you want or as little as you want. We have some volunteers that literally volunteer maybe 5 hours a month, and then some that do 10 or 15 hours a week, which is pretty impressive. The thing I just want us to remember is this: Red Cross is just not about blood. We probably on a monthly basis will send a service member home for a funeral or for a special event, an emergency of some type. The Red Cross does that for all of our service members, as well as every single house fire, single family or multifamily house fire. And we probably have house fires at least 2 or 3 a week here in our region. The Red Cross, working with emergency managers and the fire chiefs, go out, and our main job is to make sure for the next 48 hours that family has shelter, has food, and has a place to stay before all the other, services kick in. And it's called our Disaster Action Team. And I'm a member of the DAT team, as we call it. And it's probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever seen, because you're dealing with folks who this is the worst day of their life. They've just basically lost almost everything they've owned. And the Red Cross is able to actually give them a stipend to get them through the next 48 hours before all their services kick in. But that includes mental health, health services, as well as transportation and housing. So again, I just want to thank you for this proclamation. It means a lot to us for this kind of visibility. And we have a very close working relationship with the Haywood County EMS. Just a shout out to your EMS folks, your fire chiefs, and your first responders. They are just fabulous people. Thank you very much.
We appreciate that. And if somebody does want to volunteer, who would they contact? Would they just Google Red Cross?
Yes, sir. You can go to just redcross.org, and there's a big button. There's 2 big buttons. One is donate. The other one is volunteer.
Okay.
And let me tell you, we need more volunteers. Yeah. We really do. And you can go on and see all the lines of services that we have, and you can kind of see what fits you. And then that'll send you to Volunteer Connection. Red Cross provides all the training, and it's literally, thousands of dollars of training for all of our volunteers, because we don't want to send them in a situation where they are not prepared. And with that, they'll contact you. I'll probably give you a call and say, all right, let's go out.
Okay. Well,
thank you very much, Mr.
And
Chairman.
thank you for being here today to explain that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, and I'll go ahead and read the resolution, and we'll vote on it. It says, whereas the American Red Cross plays a vital humanitarian role in Haywood County as it organizes caring members of the community to donate their time, talent, money, and blood to help ease suffering and save lives in our county, state, nation, and world. And whereas the Western North Carolina chapter has a long history of helping our neighbors in need by delivering shelter, care, and hope during disasters, making our community safer through its life-saving home fire campaign, providing life-saving blood, teaching skills that saves lives, and supporting military veterans and their families. And whereas last year in Western North Carolina, 332 active volunteers responded to 207 disasters in the chapter, installed 656 smoke alarms, and collected 24,727 units of blood and assisted 880 people, including military members. And whereas we thank and honor the selfless volunteers, dedicated employees, and generous supporters who make this compassionate work possible. And whereas volunteers help those affected by home fires in our community by addressing their urgent needs like food, lodging, and providing recovery support. And whereas people in our community depend on the American Red Cross, whose life-saving mission is empowered by the devotion of volunteers, generosity of donors, and partnership of the community organizations. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that Haywood County Board of Commissioners declares March as American Red Cross Month in Haywood County, North Carolina. So I'll entertain a motion that we approve the resolution.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you very much, and that means a lot. We do have a Salute to Heroes kind of celebration on March the 24th at Highland Brewery at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you like beer and eggs or whatever, I don't know what it's going to be. But basically, we have recognized, working with the EMS of every single county, there'll be one person from every county to be recognized as our Salute to Heroes. So you're more than welcome.
Okay.
Show up if you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Then our next order of business is appointments, and we have our county manager, Brian Moorhead, to request approval of the following appointments or reappointments to the 1% subcommittee for each zip code, and that's under attachment 18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Most of these are actually reappointments. I'll go through by area code. 28716 Canton. All of these are reappointments. Nathan Lowe, Debbie Crawford, and Gail Mull. From area code 28721 Clyde, Mayor Jim Trantham and Katie Gold are reappointments. A new appointment is Lisa Monteith. From zip code 28745 Lake Junaluska, Barbara Bowser, Frank Smith are reappointments, and a new appointment is Rob Huckabee. From zip code 28751 Maggie Valley, we have Lyndon Lowe as a new appointment, Twinkle Patel and Beth Brown as reappointments, and Waynesville zip codes 28785 and 86. Carolyn Brunk and Amy Owens are reappointments, and Joey Fusler is a new appointment.
Great. Somebody have any questions or any comments? I'll entertain a motion that we approve the list that our county manager just read of appointments and reappointments to the 1% subcommittee for each zip code.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I will say, those TDA folks put a lot of time into that board. I don't put as much time because I'm not a voting member of that board, but I go to those meetings. But the rest of those committees, they spend a lot of time. There's a lot of information that's done, yeah.
You and Julie both go, don't you?
Yeah, Julie goes too. David goes. He's not in here, but
David went to a meeting.
he doesn't go as much as me and Julie.
Yeah, he probably went to one of their meetings. Okay, then the second appointment is to request approval of the appointment of Nita Kirkpatrick for the public member position with the Health and Human Services Agency Board.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The Nominations and Personnel Committee met on January 14th and vetted Ms. Kirkpatrick. The Nominations and Personnel Committee recommended to the full HHSA Board on February 18th to recommend her for this appointment. The position actually became vacant upon Dr. Ross's resignation. She currently is employed at AB Tech, where she is the co-chair of the nursing program. She's responsible for the curriculum there, and she has a deep desire to help serve citizens of Haywood County. And actually, she worked at the health department years ago, so she would like to serve on this board.
Great. That's a great resume, too. We have some great people serve on our boards. Okay, so I'll entertain that motion to appoint, for approval to appoint Nita Kirkpatrick for the public member position with the Health and Human Services Agency Board.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that concludes our agenda. Does anybody have anything further this morning? And we have no closed session today, so, correct? I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
One thing before
Okay.
we adjourn, Commissioner, Chairman Inslee, looking over that packet, that American Red Cross presentation, if you get a little spare time, you ought to read up on Claire Barton. Very interesting read. She's the founder of it back during the Civil War, was a school teacher in Georgia for 12 years, and got quite a storied history. So if you have a little spare time, want some interesting reading, check out the founder of the American Red Cross.
Okay, appreciate that.
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming today.